Get ready to sink your teeth into this interview and dive into a world of adventure with our very own special guest, the one and only mother of sharks herself. This is an interview you'll want to watch all the way to the end because we are doing a special deep dive with Cristina Zenato. Cristina is known to some as the mother of sharks and to others as that crazy lady who tips sharks on their nose. But Cristina has dedicated her life to bridging the gap between humans and these misunderstood creatures. Cristina is also widely known in the community for many other things as well. She's an accomplished instructor, cave diver, conservationist, and, as our friend Ed Sorenson would say, a damn amazing woman. She has also been quoted as saying, "I wish there were sharks in caves." So put on your wetsuits and hold on to your chum buckets because things are about to get sharky here at Teach Me to Dive. Cristina will have a special message at the end of this interview that you will not want to miss. And if you do, she might sick a shark on you during your next dive. So hit that subscribe button now. Again, my name is Benjamin Hadfield, and I'm a technical diving instructor with Teach Me to Dive, connecting divers with quality instructors, dive shops, dive locations, and dive agencies for training. Cristina, thank you so much for taking the time with us this morning.
Thank you, Benjamin. It's a pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Thank you. Well, Cristina, let's just jump into it. How did you first get started in diving?
I wanted to learn to scuba dive since I was a child, but I never had the opportunity of the right combination of time, money, and support, unfortunately, in the beginning. And so when I was 22, I had some time off, and I went to a travel agency and had this list of places where I wanted to go. And none was available. So I said, well, what do you have to offer? And they said, well, we have a place in the Bahamas. On the Bahamas, we're talking about 94, was not really a very well-known destination. It was a honeymoon destination. It was far away, definitely not somewhere where you went to learn to scuba dive. But through a series of choices, coincidences, I landed on this island. I did my open water course. I fell in love with what I knew is something that I already knew I would fall in love with. And in a week's time, decided to change my life. So I went back to Italy, where I'm from, and quit everything. Job, boyfriend, apartment, packed 2 duffel bags and moved back to the Bahamas. And I've been here since.
Wow, you just like that. You fell in love with the water so much. The boyfriend out the window. The job, see you later. I'm going to the Bahamas and I am moving my bag of stuff at 23. So you were about 23.
I was 22. So the thing is, if you're 22 and you do not try these things, when are you going to try them? When you're 72, when you're 82? I think 22, you try them. And then if it doesn't happen, well, you can go back to the drawing board. I mean, technically you can go back to the drawing board like I did the last couple of years, 50 something. But 22, you should just try them. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? And you change again. And it's an incredible experience. So my project was to stay here for a year, to do it for a year, get diving out of my system, go back to my quote unquote, what people now call a real job. And then I realized that, well, I still haven't got diving out of my system. So I'm still working on that. And so I made this my real job.
That is absolutely amazing. So 22, so you've been diving for 5 years now, right?
Yes, 25.
We're home because you and I are the same age. So I'm going to stick with that 5 years thing. It's perfect. So who certified you? Let's talk about that for a minute.
The gentleman that certified me from open water all the way to dive master, his name is Norman Fanelli. And it was an instructor in this resort where I ended up working while I was building my diving experiences. So my bridge to the diving career have been my languages. I speak 5 different languages. And so I find a job in this resort where they needed someone who could speak Italian, French, German, and relate to the English language of the Bahamas. And so while I was working at the hotel front desk with those languages, I was working on my diving career. And once I became a dive master, then I did the movement to the diving professional. But it was not automatic. I was actually very happy with my working in the hotel, diving on the side. And I thought, this is great. Because I was just like, I can travel the world, work in different resorts in the world, use my languages and dive on the side. And then somebody was like, oh, you're really good at diving. You should try this professional thing. So I tried the professional thing and ended up on the same island for all.
That is amazing. And so 22 and jumped into diving and then made your way because of your language abilities, growing up in Italy to the professional. That's quite a journey. And then where now you just stayed in the Bahamas. You never end up traveling abroad.
I never actually changed island. I landed on Grand Bahama Island, and this is where I've been all this time. I mean, I've been traveling. I've been going to places to learn about um, technical diving, cave diving, other instructors, what they're doing, training, a shark, people that work with sharks. So I travel in different places to continue build what was my knowledge, understanding, and capabilities. But no, I never change basically location. I've been one of those weird diving instructors. I found one place in the Caribbean and basically made roots. I grew up in Africa. I have to admit, I grew up in Central Africa speaking French and Italian with my parents. And so I've been a traveler since I was an infant. So traveling, moving is something that I was familiar with through my family. So it was not that, for me, difficult to think, well, my dad and my mom did it. Why can I not go and do my own thing now?
Wow, that is amazing. And so if I remember right, your dad was in the military.
My dad was in the military prior to meeting my mom. I grew up with these beautiful black and white pictures of my dad using these ARA, the oxygen, pure oxygen rebreathers, and the stories of the life in the Mediterranean. And so I had a little bit the dream to when they grow and do what my dad was doing. But by the time I was born, he was working in engineering, construction, roads, railways. So we were in the heart of Africa, literally like on the equator between the Democratic Republic of Congo and the Republic of Congo.
Okay. Gotcha. So there we go. So there's that inspired it as well of got to find this out and got to take care of this because my dad did it one time. And so neat. How neat. Now dive training's changed so much since 94. And I mean, how have you seen the industry change in terms of training and how it works since you first became certified in 94?
Well, the time have been reduced thanks to technology. When I did my course, it was like 5 or 6 days for an open water class. Everything was delivered by the instructor. Nowadays, most of it is delivered prior to reaching the instructor through digital manners. It has a little bit of a softer approach, I would say, in general. And that has allowed a wider range of people to basically enter the world of diving and is based more on the underwater performance rather than the physical strength manifested around the entire process. So these are the things that I would say have maybe the biggest change that I noticed. Times have shortened. People in a certain way have kind of like they're rushing sometimes. I wish they would take a little bit extra time to do that.
That is good advice for everything in diving, though. Is take your time, slow it down, enjoy. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten on a boat and with my wife and I, just a recreational boat, and we're always the first one's in and the last one's out, and we're well behind everybody else. And they say, "Well, where'd you guys go? What'd you do?" And I says, "Well, we focused on this square foot of the ocean." And then when we got done with that, we moved to this square foot of the ocean, and we move along. So it's great advice. I can't tell you how many times I try and explain that to my new divers. You don't have to see the whole ocean in one dive. There's a lot of ocean. Let's take our time and let's focus on this square foot and see where we get. So good advice. So you're definitely. I like to think of Ed as a mermaid, and that's what I call my wife. Is she is definitely a mermaid because it's a very unusual thing to see a mermaid, and but it's just this pure treat. So you're a certified cave diving instructor. You're CCR. I mean, you've gone to the very extreme of all types of diving, and typically what we see is you get into the caves, you get into the tech, you get into CCR. That it's a male dominated industry. So tell me about being a woman in a male dominated industry.
Well, honestly, when I was in the recreational world in the beginning, I was a woman in a male-dominated industry. I
Hmm.
didn't have to enter the technical world to find that.
Sure.
In I have to say that I have both. I had and I think that is normal. I I feel, in all honesty, with respect to the men that have been absolutely amazing in my life, from Norman Fanelli to Butch Hendrick to Harry Averill, just to name a few, that never made a distinction between being a woman and being a diver. Their concept was, well, if you're a good diver that applies herself and himself, here's my support. So there's been amazing men in the industry that don't make that distinction. I found more of the difficulty in what I will call the middle range diver. So the divers that would judge because a woman showed up, not necessarily professional. So I found that as women, I had to work a little bit harder. We joke with some of my colleagues or women in the industry, kind of like have to jump a little bit higher, wave our arms a little bit stronger, and just sometimes maybe a little bit more present and more performing in order to be evaluated.
Hmm.
The hardest part was actually when I became a course director in 2015. So the preparation up to course director. So we're talking about 20 years into my career.
Hmm.
It was very interesting. I would enter a class where I was co-teaching, and I could, 20 years, I can read the classroom, and I could tell the students were automatically like, oh, well, we'll see. We'll see what you have to teach us. But when a guy entered, no matter if he'd been an instructor for 2 years and was already going for a course director, it was automatic that he knew what he was talking about. So it was very interesting. That I would say that recreational diving industry is the one that actually made it a little bit hard. The technical diving industry, by the time you enter in the technical diving world, most of the guys were just like, if you're here, that means you are doing what it requires to be done. And for the most part, it was not as as difficult. Not for me.
Well, absolutely. No, I've noticed that as well. I've watched my wife go through this industry and work her way up, and there was a few hurdles and there's a few things that I think she had to get over because she was looking at it from one way and slinging 70 pounds of twins on her back and with that as well. But once she got to the point where she was certified in technical diving, I noticed all of a sudden it seemed like a lot of barriers just went away. You're here, you can sling it. Let's go. And it didn't seem as big a problem. So I've noticed that as well. And I watch very closely how that. Now, has it been tough to gain the respect of the men around you when you in that mid range diving?
Yes, sometimes it has. And in a certain way, I would say the least experienced, the tougher it has been. To the point that I will be on a boat. I used to manage an operation with boats, 20 dive stuff, and somebody will approach me and is like, "Where's the dive supervisor?" And I'm just like, "Hi," and they're like, "Well, no, where's the dive boss?" And he's just kind of like, it's me. The one that my staff used to kind of like cringe because they knew it would drive me crazy. I am a boat captain and I can drive about 6 or 7 types of boats: twin engine, single screw, no bow thrusters. I can bring in boats tied up to my hip that are broken. And every time I dock the boat, I taught my crew how to drive the boat. Somebody on the boat will applaud, right? Something that they never did for men. So when one of my crew drove the boat in, they were kind of like, "Yeah, man, thank you. See you tomorrow." When I docked the boat, people will go, "Oh, so good." And my crew will duck away where they would just kind of like run for your life. But I learned to manage my Italianism. But it was one of those evident, just like, really? Really, did you just applaud? And the other one that I had that was, it was funny for me. Like I would be having my 2 tanks taken down to the boat, up the ramp, 2 more tanks down to the boat, 2 more tanks up the ramp, down the ramp with the tanks. And then I'm like, all right, guys, time to board the boat. And I will lean forward to grab somebody's gear bag and they'll go, oh, it's heavy. and my reaction was just stood on the railing watching me carry 10, 16 tanks down to the boat. Your gear bag is fine, is within the range of my work.
So, Christina, we were definitely talking about the idea of how it's different in the industry for be a woman and how you had to gain respect. So how has it been different as a woman diver with gear and technical diving? Of course, other than coming up with a ton more gas than everybody around you.
Oh my God, the gear. Oof. The change that the industry made to adapt to women and small bodies, priceless, absolutely priceless. And that is, I think we have to thank also the different markets that slowly came into the picture, like the Asia market, where the people are naturally a little. As an Italian woman in an American market, the first 10 years in the technical diving world, I had to adapt to the gear. The gear was not adapting to me. So I spent a lot of effort into dealing with gear that when I inflated would be like pushing my head down. The dry suit, even the extra small man will be inflating up to the chest here. So I always was dealing with oversized, with cumbersome, with like a lot of things that contained a lot of space, which obviously I had then to manage all throughout my technical dive. And I have to say that the changes that have happened in design of side mounts, dry suits, really have changed a little bit the edge by which I dive. I remember the first time I swapped from one harness to the other, all of a sudden I was just like, I can move my head. When the dry suit neck seals start having a different ring that was not sitting at the edge of my clavicle, but it was actually sitting on the inside of my clavicle, all of a sudden I was just like, oh, the dry suit does not inflate up to my chin. So definitely the gear has made a change for much better. And then there's the technical changes that everybody benefited from. Computers, computer profiles, cave diving lights, like lights in general. The LED was just absolutely the change into a new era. But definitely as a woman, very much welcome the, female shaped wetsuits as well, the female shaped dry suits, those kind of things.
That's amazing. So for divers wanting to follow you, what kind of classes should they look into taking?
Well, I teach technically I teach the whole range from open water all the way to advanced cave or CCR cave, a side mount. The range that I don't teach is deep and trimix and Rex. That's not my field. I'm very much a firm believer that you need to teach what you dive. If I don't dive it, I don't teach it because I can't bring you life experiences on it. But primarily, people usually contact me for shark courses or experiences, and then for technical diving, primarily side mount, cave, and then a side mount rebreather. Those are my unique specialties. And then I have a unique clientele, which is really interesting. Unfortunately, that come in for workshops. So I have a lot of divers that come in who are certified advanced divers, rescue divers, sometimes a little bit more like side mount divers, but they feel not complete. They feel uncertain. Some of them have still problems with their masks. So they kind of says, well, I want to learn more about my buoyancy because I'm still struggling with my buoyancy. And as we go through a workshop, I realize they are still afraid of a little bit of water in their mask. So the basics have not been built. Those are not courses. I call them workshops because I don't issue a card, but I do a interview. We jump on Zoom, we talk for an hour and a half. And then I come up with, okay, we're going to go here. We're going to work on these 3 things. And by eliminating the course and the card, we eliminate the pressure of a performance requirement. And we focus really on the things that the diver needs to improve for himself or herself. And that gives them the next step. And all of a sudden they come out of the workshop that is I've received messages like, I never had so much fun diving until I did this. So I'm very specialized in adjusting details of certified divers. I call it diving ergonomics. I watch the diver in the whole entirety, and I fix from, maybe just switching a little bit the position of the weights or the fins and as soon as I see there's something like, oh, I'm afraid a little bit of warning mass, it's like, okay, we go back to the basics, and I can't teach you buoyancy unless I teach you how to be comfortable with a flooded mask while you're neutrally buoyant. And that is the range that I work with.
Excellent. So how do you empower and encourage other girls and women to follow and join you in the industry?
I do quite a lot of mentorship programs online. So young women that reach out to me through messages, any kind of social media messages that have somewhat of an idea or a course that they want to take. The first thing I do, I dedicate them about an hour or two on Zoom of private conversation, see where they are, what they want to do, suggestions. I then forward them links to possible scholarships and training grants that they can look into. And then my husband and I host them quite a few per year, so they can come here for 2 to 3 weeks. We don't call it an internship. It's come and live our life for 2 to 3 weeks. And so they come along and they join us on the shark course. They sit with us in the living room as we plan the day. They sit with us at the end of the day as we talk about the next thing. And then we provide them with exposure to the cavern. Depending on what level they are, we've done from a cavern tour all the way to training someone for sideman and intro to cave, all free of charge. So they have to make their way here. They are responsible for their accommodation, but then they get to spend 2-3 weeks with us free of charge to feel what it is. Is this for you? Let's face it, there's a lot of people that look at our job and they're like, I would love to do that. And it's just absolutely, oh, your tummy is a little bit aching today. Guess what? We have 2 hours in a cave. And there are levels where you obviously call it because you're sick, but there's also the day that you wake up and you're kind of like, oh, I'm not sure I want to dive today, but you put on your nice little hat and you go, hi, Benjamin, how you doing today? Let's go diving, because that's part of our job. And so once you spend 2-3 weeks is, how was the full immersion? How did it make you feel? They get to see the behind the scene. Some of them, we host them in our living room. We only have a one little bedroom apartment. So at 5 a.m. when I wake up and I turn the light on, I'm like, morning. And the light turns on for them. And I tell them, the light will turn on for you. I have to work. Welcome to my world when I wake up at 5 to complete everything I need to do, to be out of the door at 8, to do the dream job that you came here to investigate. Well, it starts at 5. So I feel that what I do is beneficial for them. A lot of them have found the different ways. And then locally, I trained Bahamians for a very long time, both men and women, into the art of scuba diving at all different levels. I provide, the open water course or the advanced course. I had a young man that reached out to me and it was interested in understanding what cave diving was. So I said, well, why don't you come? We'll take you cavern diving. So we did a cavern tour for a day. Kevin came along, took some pictures for him. We do things like that when we have time as well.
That's amazing. That is fantastic. Hosting young women in your living room to help them find that. I mean, that's definitely a different level. That's fantastic. I mean, it's what I've kind of discovered about the dive community over the years, is that it's a very welcoming community. We just recently taught an ice course. And one of our ice divers came 4 hours to join us. And I know that must seem completely foreign to you, but it's a big deal out here where we're at. And he was coming out. I said, why are you getting a hotel? We have 2 guest rooms in our home. Stay in our guest room. We'll get up the next morning. We'll have some breakfast, maybe some tea, and then we'll head over to the ice site. And they're like, wait, what? What? Are you sure? So I think you definitely embody that diver mentality of, this is a community. How do we help and how do we create family through this? And that's amazing. I appreciate that quite a bit.
I dream of a 2-bedroom home to have a guest home for the divers. I honestly do, but we can't afford it. But it's really sometimes, Kevin looks at me, he's like, you want a 2-bedroom home so you can have a room to have more people. It's like, brilliant.
I get it completely. Well, and that offer stands for you. If you ever decide that you need to go out and do something like Yellowstone or ice diving, we have a guest room.
Oh my goodness, yes. I would love to. You
are more than welcome to come out. We will host you, pick you up at the airport, drive you to the site. Whatever you need, we probably have. So I want to extend that invitation, and heartfelt. We actually mean it. So
thank you, Benjamin. And with that, I'm actually going to jump on that because it is something I want to do. And it's one of the things when I talk to divers and when I talk to young upcoming divers, I tell them, you need to learn laterally, not only vertically. There's sometimes in the industry, this trend is like the next certification. And sometimes like, pause. You just offered, it says, you want to dive the Yellowstone and under the ice? It's like, yes, I want to experience that. I am a total newbie, but it's something that I can put under my belt. And then next time when I'm teaching in the Bahamas, I can add a little story about that. As an instructor, I remember I was already an advanced nitrox decompression instructor, but I'd done my training here. And so I reached out to my instructor trainer, who is from Canada, and I said, are you teaching an advanced nitrox decompression procedures class anytime soon? And he said, yes. He said, but you're already an instructor for that. And I said, well, I teach it in Bahamas. So I traveled to the Thousand Islands, and I end up following him in the St. Lawrence River in however many degrees less water in a ripping current with this 2-foot visibility, because I needed that experience to enrich me as an instructor. So I invested that time and that money. And to me, that is a grow laterally, because now I had that exposure to the St. Lawrence River, and I repeated it a couple of times. And like, well, when somebody asks questions, now I have enough data, right? Because bless the Bahamas, love it, right? You're down at 200 feet to teach in advanced nitrox decompression procedures. And one of the standards says you need to use your light. And the sunlight goes, hi, I'm here through the clear water of the Bahamas. You can actually see each other without any light. So you use the light, but it has no meaning, no sense, right? So the student does not get the full comprehension of like, what is a light signal when at 200 feet you can see because of the surface light. And then you go to the St. Lawrence River and you explain that, you bring it in under your belt. So learn laterally, not only vertically.
Absolutely. So we would love it. We're in Yellowstone almost every weekend over the summer. We'd love to share and the wildlife. I think you'll love. We have elk that will come and sleep in our front yard in front of our trailer. There have big 7-point elk, 8-point elk. There's foxes that get up in the morning and run through the campgrounds. There's bison everywhere. Sometimes we see bears, black bears or brown bears from a distance. They're very shy, but please extend that
in
invitation.
The summer, are you saying? I'm serious about this. It's in the summer, not in the winter.
No, in the summertime, we go to Yellowstone Park and we camp there. Right now, I think we've got 54 nights in Yellowstone. Tell me what weekend do you want to be there, and I'll send. What I will do is I will send you the list of the weekends we were there in Yellowstone. We'll pick you up in Salt Lake City, and we will bring you to our home, and then we'll pack up and we'll go to Yellowstone National Park together. That would be a treat and honor.
Thank you.
All you have to do is get here. We'll take care of the rest.
Yeah, that's the hardest part. I'm trying to find tickets to get to Oklahoma City to speak at the town hall, and it's just from the Bahamas. Anyway.
I get that completely. So when are you going to be in Oklahoma City?
September 20th, 21st. I'm really struggling to find connections. The connection times in Dallas are between 20 and 40 minutes, and I cannot find a flight that comes in from Miami to Dallas and then Dallas to Oklahoma City that allows me to be in Dallas for a couple of hours. And I don't like 20 to 40 minutes. To me is just it gives me too much anxiety. Once I'm traveling, I'd rather spend 2 hours in the airport and being able to transfer from one flight to the other without
No, I get it
stress.
completely. I've traveled quite a bit, and so I've just made myself a note for my computer that I will send you that. There we go. I
Thank
live
you.
on Post-its. Absolutely. So I've got a picture. I'm going to share my screen real quick. Let's see here. This is a little bit of a surprise. Let's share screen. I want you, and I've got a question with this. So as
Mhm.
we look at this, what inspired you to become the mother of sharks?
I, I did not start thinking I'm going to become the mother of sharks. I
Hmm.
started with I love sharks. I had a childhood dream of being an underwater scuba ranger who managed the oceans and told divers what to do, what not to do, who would have a school of sharks, they call it shearer, but a pack of sharks following her wherever she went, almost like my cousin. He's a forest guard and he drives around with his Jeep, just gets off the Jeep and he has his dog with him and he makes sure people don't pick the wrong mushrooms and things like that in the Dolomites in Italy. I was just like, I'm going to do that on the water. And that was my first dream. So when I came to the Bahamas and I did my first open water dive, there were sharks on a dive. And that was one of the reasons why I decided to stay, is I can dive with sharks. And everything else was an evolution. Like if you read, I decided to stay, and the more you stay, the more time you spend. What I did not realize is that the rest of the world did not share, and until this day doesn't share my passion, my love, my appreciation for sharks. And so I slowly started with education on the boat. When we were on a shark dive, divers will come on the boat, like, oh, I want to see sharks, but I'm very afraid. There was always this conflict, right? I want to see sharks, but I'm so scared. And so the education was on the boat, sometimes through a magazine if somebody did an article. And then social media slowly started and expanded. And I was just like, well, I'm going to keep sharing this message. And eventually, the name Mother Sharks came up. So my first step was I just want people to understand how much I love sharks because I love sharks. And then now, obviously, the message has acquired a little bit more of a, what you will call like a defined purpose. Once I realized what is that people wanted in a certain way or needed to understand and appreciate. But it was a process. I didn't start at 22 going, I want to become the mother of sharks. Honestly, I was just like, I just want to die with sharks. And I'm going to change my life so that I can dive every day and be in the water with sharks every day. It was very selfish. There's nothing wrong with that. And when I discover caves, I just want to cave dive. I want to cave dive and shark dive, cave dive and shark dive. And then all of a sudden I realized people are terrified of both of them. And the misconceptions about both of them are run so deep, so incorrectly that I was just like, well, how to compare this to something we can relate? Imagine you fall in love with someone and your family goes, oh, that person is absolutely terrible for you. What are you trying to do is actually, most of the time, at least give it a try to show your family how this person is right for you. And so these are my families, the caves, the sharks. I was just like, no, listen, this is the reality of this family, of this love that I have. This is the reality of caves. This is the reality of sharks. And that's how it was born. Is I think Baba Dion said it the best, right? In the end, you protect what you love, but you love only what you understand, and you understand only what you're taught. So I started teaching so that people could understand and eventually love. And I see the results.
It's amazing. So I guess a great question would be is how do you gain their trust so easily? At least you make it look easy. How do you gain their trust?
Like anything in the wild, how did Jane Goodall gain the trust of the chimpanzee? And of course, we're talking about a different level of associative thought with an animal, but a very powerful animal is you spend time with them. You establish a relationship. A relationship is established over time, over listening. We discussed before the beginning when you said, "Oh, shark whisperer," and I said I don't like to be called a shark whisperer because it's a beautiful title, but it implies that I'm telling the sharks something. I'm whispering them. I don't. I call myself the shark listener. I'm an interpreter. I watch them. I listen to them, and all I do is say, "Listen, this is how we have to interpret their behavior." And so then we go into, there's over 500 species of sharks. One size does not fit all. We humans need to adapt to their world, their characteristics, their way of being. And so I listen and then interpret for them to the humans. But it's like any relationship: time, patience, understanding. Sometimes saying, "Okay, not today."
That's an amazing thing to learn. And I think it's something that we don't teach early enough in diving, is that today might not be the day. It's okay to call a dive. I recently had an experience where I was teaching ice diving, and one of my divers, a very fit former Marine, he just got out of the service about 6-8 months ago. He got in the hole. He got down for about a minute or two. He was very, very excited about diving under the ice. Came back up and he says, "I need out." And I'm like, "Are you okay?" He says, "I need to call this dive. I've got to do a reset." We pulled him out of the hole. We took his gear off, put him in the heated tent, gave him 30 minutes. He came back out. He says, "Okay, I've got my mind right. I'm ready to do this. Let's try again." And so I don't think people try that. They don't step back. And something as big as a shark, you've got to step back. You got to say, "Hey, wait a minute. Today's not our day. We're not communicating." There's obviously days with your husband or my wife that it's like, we're not communicating. We just need to take a 30-minute cool off and let's just figure this out and let's step back. And so I
Well, I usually
appreciate.
tell my husband, I'm not arguing with you. I'm just telling you why, trying to explain to you why I'm right. But
Mine is usually the opposite with my wife. I'm not arguing with you. I'm just trying to tell you why you're right and I'm wrong. So
I'm kidding. But yes,
okay.
and there is that. There is, we just had a client, phenomenal cave diver, repeat client. And then we did one day of cave diving. And the next morning he calls and he says, I don't feel good. I don't want to dive today. I'm like, okay, no problem. So Kevin and I readjusted and actually went and took pictures for our own pleasure and fun. And then the next morning we went to pick him up. And as we pull up with the car, I look at him and I'm from the car and I told Kevin, I said, he doesn't look good. So we got out of the car and I said, "You don't look good." And he goes, "Yeah, I don't really feel." So we end up basically going for a cappuccino. We went and drank a cappuccino and spent half a morning together. And then we dropped him off again at his hotel. And then the next morning we went diving. And in the process, he was worried. He said, "Oh, you need to charge me for your time." And I said, "It's not about charging for the time." I said, "You didn't feel good." I said, it's all good. Don't worry about that. I actually appreciate that you are actually capable of calling the dive and not pushing, because obviously I don't want to be 2,000-3,000 feet, because this is an advanced cave diver. So sometimes we go 2,000-3,000 feet inside a cave on multiple, passageways and all of that. And I was just like, that is not the place you want to be today. And I think if we taught that to divers, and not on the easy dives, well, I call it today, I can dive tomorrow. On the hard dives, I travel all the way here and I put all this effort in, but I do not feel it. And it's okay to say no. It's actually for me, it's so relieving. It's so beautiful when I have someone that says, I don't feel it. I'm sorry. And I feel like you're wasting your time. And I'm like, no. You actually saving everybody's time and lives in a certain way, and you eliminate the risks. So I think we should teach divers that it's okay to call the dive. We shouldn't have a conversation on the boat as like, oh, I watched it, people teasing each other. And it's just like, I usually, if somebody says, not for me, I'll just stand there and I'm like, wow, congratulations. It takes a lot of strength and a good, mature mind. So positive reinforcement on that decision.
That's fantastic. And so you're absolutely amazing. So, but we've all had that moment. So what was your most challenging experience you've had while working with sharks, and how did you handle that?
Sharks I never really had challenging moments with. I think the most challenging moments is when you put the human factor in it. So people that come on the dive and I want to be with the sharks, and then although you go through the whole explanation and briefing and all of that, their reaction is more instinctual than what you have to expect or do. And so when I'm with sharks, my attention is on the people, not really on the sharks. Sharks are sharks. They're very direct. I find sharks very easy, very direct, very honest. I think they're one of the most natural animals to be in the water with, one of the easiest animals to be in the natural world with. As the joke I usually say, they have no mean bones in their body. They don't have bones, but they're actually not mean. They're like, they're so direct. I kind of like, I'm a shark. I'm just going to swim around the ocean. Remember, I do step 1, step 2, step 3. And that's how I see sharks. So the most challenging moments is with the people and their reactions to those challenging moments. And it's just like, stop, just stop, breathe. But no, with sharks, I never, now that I recall, I had beautiful moments. Hundreds of thousands of beautiful moments.
That's amazing. And I agree with that. And I love that. If you're biblical, certainly the sparrow doesn't toil or trouble. He realizes that he will be taken care of. And so is shark. They have a very simple existence. This is my life. You either like it or you don't. I don't care. I'm going to do me. And I think more people could stand to be like sharks. So I've thought about it for a long time. And so here's my story. I was out, we were out doing some fishing for.
Sorry, Benjamin, you're breaking up. I can't hear you.
I apologize for that.
Okay.
Are we back?
Yeah, we're back. Perfect.
So here's my thought about sharks was we were out fishing for mahi with my father-in-law at the time, and we hooked a mahi and he started zipping back and forth, and there was a gray shadow behind the mahi the whole time, and as he got closer in, there was never a time when that gray shadow wasn't about 2 feet behind the mahi, and finally we get to the point where it's time to hook the mahi into the boat, and I hand the gaff hook off to my brother-in-law, and he goes, he hands it back. He says, I'm not doing that, because we could see the shark. And so I hooked the mahi, and I swear I didn't hook the mahi, but more he jumped out of the water into the ice bucket and said, thank you, as the shark came out trying to bite him. And I thought, if I only had that type of laser focus in my life, that I have a singular goal and singular desire in my life to do something, how much more could I accomplish? I'd probably have a brand new deck out back. My yard would always be mowed, and there would be so many more things done in my life if I could just have the same focus as a shark. So I really love sharks for their singular purpose of, I'm a shark, like it or don't, I don't care. This is my day. I'm going to do my thing. So they're not mean. They're not mad. If they're trying to nibble something, it's not because they're mad at something. It's just, is it food? Is it not? Oh, it's food. Simple. It's pretty straightforward.
They're very straightforward, and that's the thing. And most of the time, people don't realize how often we are in the water with sharks, swimmers alike, and everything. And sharks are capable of going. I imagine them going around with a clipboard, going, check. No, that doesn't check. And literally, no, seriously, they go check, check, check. And if it checks, sometimes they'll go for it. But I have a friend, Mike Retson. He used to work with great whites some 20 years ago. They were trying to film a great white breaching from below. So instead of they usually do the usual shark coming out of the water, they wanted to film it from below. And they had a surfboard, and they showed these great whites constantly swimming underneath the surfboard, taking an ascent, and then go, oh, no. And hours and hours and hours of footage of sharks going, no, that's not what I actually thought it would be. And in the end, they end up showing the footage of the shark going for the surfboard, which to me, it perpetrates the, oh yeah, well, if you're on a surfboard, and it's just like, no, look, it took them hundreds of hours to film. And most of the film is the shark going, oh, no, that's not the one. Because it went, check. Oh, that doesn't check. I have another friend in San Diego. His name is Scott Fairchild. Look him up on Instagram. It posts daily videos of gray whites and paddleboarders, surfers, paddle swimmers, all sorts of like people that interact in the water. And these people that are in the water know of the sharks. He's droning them, and it shows how the sharks are very capable of going and all of that. And then sometimes a bite happens. So rare, much rarer than anything else. And it's all these numbers that human brains can comprehend anyway. So we keep saying, oh, there's more death by vending machines. People don't really understand that, because a shark bite triggers, unfortunately, and fortunately, a primordial instinct. The one that our ancestor had, right, is fear and disgust. That's how you survive. Don't eat that. Looks like it's going to make you sick. Ooh, disgusting. Ooh. And fear, don't get out of your hut, or there's most likely the next door village is going to chop your head off and shrink it and put it on a stick. The shark bite triggers that old, I'm going to get eaten alive. But the rarity of the occasion should actually not worry the attention that media gives to it. Because if we actually start doing call-in activities based on deaths, I mean, I think the number one will be people will stop driving cars. And then it will go to bicycles. And then eventually they will stop driving bicycles, because I was talking with somebody who is an EMT in the Netherlands, and they said the number one call that they get is people getting injured as a crash because everybody bicycles in the Netherlands. So most of the hospitalizations are caused by bicycle crashes. So there is a risk inherent with everything, but the risk of a negative shark encounter is so seldom, so rare, that I wish we'd really give sharks a different kind of attention.
I would agree with that 100%. So tell me about the coolest moment you've ever had with a shark.
I think it was the first time and every time since when one of my big girls comes into my lap and rests there and decides that it's okay for me to pet her, and it's okay for her to be a little bit in a vulnerable position. They come on their own accord. They'll put their head in my lap, and then I gently pet them. And naturally, sharks, when they stop swimming, they sink. But opposite of popular belief, most sharks have a second ventilation system called buccal pumping. So they're capable of pumping water through their gills by opening and closing their jaws. And so they'll siphon water in and push it through. And so she slowly sinks on the ocean floor. And I sit there with her, and I can feel her body relaxing, and all of a sudden it goes like, but they're still very aware, because if I move my finger, their eyes following the finger. If the cabin is coming in and it comes in too hot, too fast, she'll be like, ooh, they can feel everything. But it is a magical moment. It's a wild animal saying, yeah, in this moment, I'm okay, and I trust you. And they can sit there for a few minutes up to, I've done like a full dive, like 45, 50 minutes with just one shark sitting there, just gently patting her. And I think it's magical. The other time is when I tried to remove a hook. And a lot of people think the sharks retaliate, but they don't. They don't have a defensive mechanism. What they do is they swim away, because nature tells them, well, it hurts, don't stay. We don't sit still on the dentist chair, if you think about it. And then the shark comes back and lets me try again, and then lets me try for a few seconds. Sometimes they pause, and then they go, oh, it hurts, swims away, comes back again. Let me try again. Swims away, comes back again. Let me try again. And that is a connectivity that I think they're making, because another animal will go, well, that hurts, I'm gone, see you later. But instead, this shark just circles back and comes back, allowing me to try to remove the hook over and over again. And that is fascinating. It's beautiful.
How many hooks do you think you've removed in your lifetime?
We estimated over 300 and some, 320, 330.
Wow.
I used to
That
remove them and throw them away. I used to look at them as like, oh, evil object. Then I started giving them away. People started saying, oh, can I have your hook? Then I started putting them on dream catchers. And then eventually sometimes I will come home and I'll be like, oh, and I hung it on this mirror in my bedroom. And then one day I was invited in China. And I was invited in China. There is this for a national TV program that wanted to talk about shark fins, shark fin soup, reducing them, do a national TV talk about that because it's highly consumed in Asian countries. And when I got there with my hooks in my hands, they were like, no, 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 you can't have that. And they gave me this beautiful red box, a jewelry box. And they said, this is where you should hold your hooks. And I call it the box of hope. And I started putting the hooks in there. And then it's kind of like overflowing now. I kind of need a bigger box.
I understand completely. That is absolutely amazing. So if there's video out there. How did you get to the point? I don't even know how to begin to describe this, but tipping the sharks on their nose. That I saw this and I was blown away. How did you get to the point where you decided I'm going to tip a shark?
So that happened, and I stopped doing that so that people know because it lost its meaning. But it was a consequence of having the shark in my lap and pet her. And then I used to kind of like lift her up and bring it over to people, or back in the day when we did the observation hour, where people can watch me do this, and they could give her a little gentle stroke. So it's really, we're tactile creatures, and you have no idea what someone being able to just simply touch for a few seconds. And I know there's a lot in the internet about touching, but I'm not going to go down that way. People can keep their opinion on that. But like they touched the shark and they came back up with this complete change perception. And then one day I had the shark in my hands and I was just like, well, I wonder. And I literally tipped her and she stood there on my hand, and then slowly, her tail moved out of the way and she swam away and came back around like nothing was. And when I did that, people, we're talking about 95, they came out and they're like, wow, I didn't know sharks could do that. And I realized it was a very good communication starter. What else don't you know about sharks? Did you know that? And it was very much a conversation piece. Unfortunately, with the expansion of social media, in maybe 10 years ago, it started to change. It started to become almost like a bucket list. Or people then start doing, well, you're just doing it with Caribbean reef sharks, like you're not doing it with the big sharks or the dangerous sharks. And it's just like, there's no dangerous sharks. So there was this competition about doing it with the bull or with the tiger or with the great white. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. One size, first of all, does not fit all. And second of all, is not just flipping the shark. Is I first put them to sleep and relax, and then I lift them and then slowly tilt them. It's not like a forceful behavior, right? And so when that started, when that size competition started, and you can imagine which kind of divers started that kind of size competition, I stopped doing the vertical. I started doing the verticals. I also started having requests from people saying, well, I'm going to come and do your program, and all I want is the picture with a shark vertical in my hand. And so the focus moved from the shark to me. Not me, but like me. Oh, look at me, what I can do with a shark. And all of a sudden I was just like, no, this is not working. And so I honestly stopped. But it was a consequence of like, how do you give a kiss to a shark? I had a shark in my lap and I realized that I want to feel the texture of the skin of the shark. So I took my regulator out and went down on the shark and gave her a kiss. And through my lips, I could feel the texture of her skin because that is the only part of my body that had the capability. Now, every once in a while, I also do my hand and I just give her a little stroke with my bare hand. But it was an evolution.
That is absolutely amazing. And I thought it was a very beautiful moment to see this shark come and sit in your lap, and then you very gently and very lovingly pick the shark up and get him, bring them up. And then all of a sudden, the trust that you'd been able to instill and build through your extreme experience and through patience and time and effort and time and patience, to be able to take the shark, and it trusted you enough to let it put it into a vertical position. And then eventually once it got to the perpendicular position, it said, okay, I've done it, but I need to go ahead and go on and do my thing. But it shows a lot to be able to build that level of trust with such an amazing apex animal was extraordinary. So I definitely
Thank you.
was blown away, and just, it's something my wife and we talk about once in a while. How have we built enough trust to tip a shark? If you can get to that level of love and patience and acceptance that you can tip a shark, then, and I try that and that's one of the things I kind of think about when I work with my students. Have I got to the point that I can tip my student? If I haven't got to that point, then I haven't tried hard enough. I haven't connected and found what's their motivation. Why are they here? Because in the end, the shark, well, they kind of care about you. They don't care about you. They don't have a huge amount of feelings one way or the other. They have the trust, but you have to feel about them. They don't feel about you. You have to feel about them and love them unconditionally.
Correct. That is the first time, and that is one of the other myths out there when people go, "Oh, the shark, you love me," or "They miss me during the pandemic," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, no." I tell people all the time, I love sharks, and that's what I'm trying to transfer with my kids, with my pet. If you look in any of my posts, in any of my social media, in any of my website, I never say sharks love me. Sharks trust me. And we built a relationship, but I cannot tell sharks love me. It's not my place to do so. And I cannot interpret their behavior as such. It's a different kind of relationship. And that is the other problem. Sometimes as humans, it's like, well, they don't love you, or they don't act like the dogs, or they don't do this or they'll do this like the bears. And I'm like, sometimes I do some behavioral comparison because it's easier for people to understand. But at the end of the day, sorry, people, this is a cartilaginous fish that has been living in the oceans for 450 million years. You cannot compare it to a monkey. You cannot compare it to a bear. You cannot compare it to a cat or a dog in terms of behavior. I can do some similarities just for people to understand the concept. Like when I say some sharks like to be pet and some sharks don't. I've known them for 11 years and never once they laid in my lap. There's hope. She comes in, she comes into my shoulders, I pet her, and never once has she laid still on the ocean floor. And so to have people understand better, I say, it's like having cats. There's a cat that jumps on your lap and the cat that doesn't. But it's not comparing, saying, well, sharks behave like cats. It's just for people to understand the anecdotal concept of what the sharks. And I think that is, what you said is just priceless. It's just like, we need to take sharks for who they are and what they do. And I love sharks. I never said sharks love me back, but I hope that my love for sharks can transfer to other people who will love sharks. And if they don't love sharks, at least understand their vital role in our survival, in the survival on the ocean, why they're here, why we need them. And go, okay, still not my favorite animal, or, I'm sad to hear people say, oh, I would never swim with sharks, because it's, I think, one of the most beautiful experiences ever. But at least say, I get it. And I will change my ways to make sure that maybe sharks are more protected.
Absolutely. That's amazing. And I think it really comes down to taking the narcissist out of us, out of ourselves, and turning it into an eros, a true love of, I love people. I don't care if they love me back, but I, unselfishly love others. And the same thing with sharks. You have to unselfishly take yourself out of the equation and say, I love you. I realize that you're not going to love me back, but I love you. I don't care one way or the other. So that's amazing. Absolutely. So let's kind of flip that on its ear for a moment, though, because every diver that's been diving along enough has an oh crap moment. And I've got other ways of putting that as well. But with sharks or caves, what was your oh crap moment? What's the one that stands out for you?
That's another tough one. I I mean, we can go into the cave exploration time, and the cave exploration is the extreme of diving. So sometimes I don't like to bring up those examples because then people go, oh, you see, cave diving is dangerous. I'm like, well, no, I'm beyond the cave diving, it's a cave exploration. So I've done some calls where I was like, slightly jammed and stuck, but it's not really an oh crap moment. It's actually in those moments, my breathing rate, my focus, actually everything just goes, woof. It's like I hit a pillow, and actually all this is just like stop, really stop, breathe, think. And so as much as they might be perceived a crap moment, they're also the moments where I actually just really, I call it hit the pillow. You're like, go, go, go. And it goes, poof. It is like, stops, just stop. Something bad. How do we go through this? And so it comes with training. So I never had one of those oh crap moments like that. I would say my worst oh crap moments have been, again, with divers, where I was guiding a regular group, and all of a sudden I'm in 100 feet of water, cruising by a wreck, and I actually have a condition. It's called misophonia, and so the breathing rate of divers affect me. I can't. It just hits the back of my brain like somebody slapped me. And I remember hearing this and turning around, and I watched this person, and he had surface tattooed on his forehead. It was just like, I'm going to the surface now, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. So those are more all my crap moments, literally, just going for the person, reducing their ascent rate, making sure I put a regulator in their mouth, that kind of part. And as a recreational diving instructor and dive guide for years, those were the ones where I was more on the high alert. Funny enough, in a cave, actually, I have a different kind of alertness, and in a certain way, a different kind of environment. I don't have that high level. I would say my most oh crap moments have been in the open water with recreational divers.
I would agree with that 100%. And while I've had a few certainly situations that should be oh crap moments, and none of those were the ones that scared me the most. It was the equipment rejection with the diver at 30 feet, 50 feet. I remember a number of years ago I was skydiving, and I had my first wrapper, and the stream wrapped up, and I remember my exact reaction because I'd wondered always how I would react in that situation. And I remember looking up at the parachute that was at a full wrap as I'm heading towards plummeting to the earth at 90 miles an hour, that saying, well, that's not good. Then I figured it out, and I was able to adjust and get air into the sails and get down. And I got to the ground and pulled my chute in. I was walking back to the building, and somebody came up and says, "Oh my goodness, how are you okay?" And I thought about it, I was like, yeah, that could have been really bad. but in those situations, it was, well, that's not good. And so, but yes, I agree. You have that diver that goes into full equipment rejection. That's terrifying. That absolutely. And so I agree, and I appreciate that. The biggest issues or oh crap moments in our life usually involve somebody else, not a situation. So
No, those ones I kind of like, I literally do the stop, breathe, think, act. And I mean, I can tell the story. I was exploring an ocean blue hole with Kevin, and we're coming out, we're towards the entrance, and this is exploration, cave diving, ocean blue hole exploration. So I want people to understand this is not your regular, oh, this is the line, follow the line. And so I saw this kind of like little L-shaped, and I could see there were signs that were manifesting that there might be a leading tunnel. Some of the sign being the current, some of the sign actually being dark because the garbage is moved by the current in the ocean blue holes. And I was just like, I had a restriction to go through. And so I said, do I commit? And I'm like, well, I can jam through the restriction. As soon as I'm in, if the tunnel goes around the L, then I can actually just have a look. And so I committed head down through the restriction. It wasn't going anywhere. And so all of a sudden I had like spongy face, you can, like the cave here, and I'm kind of like jammed inside a hole. And the first thing I did was just kind of like stop. And then I let all the silt clear, and I was just like, all right, what's going on? And literally I basically grabbed my exploration reel and tightened the knot and tossed it in front of me so I could see the line, and I knew the line was going behind me. And then I was like, okay, I'm stuck. What can I get out? And I remember I removed the rebreather loop, put in my my side mount tank end, closed the loop, disconnected the tank, basically twisted it and just like shove it up the hole. Meanwhile, Kevin was out there going, what's going on? Because all he could see was silt. And you see this tank coming out. And then I literally curled over my fins and stood up on tiptoes and unhooked the other tank and came out this way. And then went back on my rebreather, grabbed the tank and checked my fins and went out. If somebody, was that a crap moment? It's like, no, it was just a commitment decision moment. And when it didn't turn out the way I wanted, is I went, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. The other concept being, I was on a rebreather. We were next to the entrance, so I had all the gas in the world to just think it through. But it was just on my own, and I don't consider that a whole crap moment, actually.
No, not at all. It was a situation. You had to make a decision. You thought about it. You weighed the decisions and did what you needed to do.
Yep.
Absolutely. So, what are your feelings on Mexico banning diving with the great whites in the cages?
That's a tough subject, and something I'm not really sure I can voice an educated opinion. Meaning, I heard 2 different rumors. None of it really verified on why they banned cage shark diving in Guadalupe. And one has to do with, well, the operator were not respecting the laws and were being too cavalier and cause, severe issues, and they may cause problems in the future. And then the other one is like, no, it's a corrupt government closing down to the operators to allow illegal fishing from foreign entities that want to fish into the marine reserve without the supervision of the dive operators. So because of the conflict of the reasoning, the opinion is different. The one about the operators, if that's the truth, considering some of the videos I've seen, I would have had a different reaction. Maybe like I would have more sanctioning issues like fees or anything like that, or observers on board to prevent them from breaking the law. The one about the illegal fishing is, unfortunately, I can sit there and go, yeah, we haven't learned. We're not learning. All we're doing is we keep depleting and depleting and depleting. And when it depletes from one, we go and look at the next one. And all we're thinking, I call it, we think from one nostril to the other. If I can't breathe in from this nostril, I want to breathe in from this one. But we don't think that eventually, if I also clog this nostril, then yeah, I can breathe through my mouth, but it's very uncomfortable. And eventually that is non-sustainable. So it's a huge mess, if you ask me. It's a big disadvantage for the Marine Reserve there. It's a big disadvantage for a lot of the other places. It could be used as an example of, wow, that's the reason why we do it. And there's no clarity. That's the issue. There's no clarity on it.
Fair enough. So overall, there's a lot of controversy out there about hand feeding sharks or shark feeding the divers, and there's a talk about it changing their behavior or becoming a problem with feeding habits. What are your thoughts on shark feedings for divers?
Well, first of all, it's not shark feeding. Yeah, I think it's an incorrect way of putting it. I feed my dogs, otherwise they will starve to death. I think it's more like a treat, the same as I keep kibbles for my dogs to sit, smell. Okay, smell. You sit, you get a little reward. We use that with children, adults. If you behave, I'll buy you a diamond ring. I don't know, that kind of stuff that we do as a positive reinforcement. If you study, I'll give you a university degree. And that to me is what most of the operators do. I am not against. However, like anything, there's good operators, there's bad operators. And so there are things that I think should be observed and that the operator should actually do. And the 3 keystones are, you need to do it safely for the people on the dive, but also you need to do it safely for the people before and after the dive. You need to do it safely for the staff that is doing it, and you need to do it safely for the sharks. And so that becomes then species specific, location specific, and way of doing it specific. The Bahamas have great examples of shark or organize a shark dive, as I call them, and very successful rate. Changing their behavior? Not really, because first of all, for example, here at Bahama Island, we have examples during and after the COVID, months and months and months and months of people not going out there, and the sharks are still there. The sharks did their own little thing. Sharks are opportunistic feeders, so when that little piece of dead fish is available, they'll come and get it, and when that dead piece of fish is not available, they'll go and find the next of fish available, which could be Benjamin fishing for a blue marlin. Oh, wow. So one of the things we forget is the sharks have learned to follow humans from the first day we put a canoe in the water and went fishing. And we have this obsessive behavior towards divers. Oh, you're teaching. I'm not teaching anything new. People that start fishing 40,000 years ago, and sharks have learned about people and fish 40,000 years ago. And yet we haven't had any bad consequences in general. Most of the organized shark dives has 0 accident rate. So the concept is, I think, is full of misconceptions and myths. And most of them are from people that do not come on these dives, do not watch these dives, do not spend the time here to watch the sharks come, go, and do whatever they need to do. Mating season, Tiger Beach, we have tigers in the wintertime. There are organized shark dives. As soon as the water warms up, the tigers are gone. You can try all your mighty, but you come here in the summer and there's no tiger sharks. Why? Because it's not their season to be here. If these were a different kind of animal, they will forego the season to stay for the food. Sharks don't. Hammerhead season, as soon as the water warms up a little, gone. Oceanic whitetip, Cat Island. The oceanic whitetip season is 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 6, gone. Those are the signs that these interactive dives do not affect the sharks, as people are saying. But what they do is, and I see it here, bring a lot of positive. And sometimes you need to evaluate, is it 100% right? No, it's not. But okay, then why do you have a bird feeder on your patio?
That is a fantastic point.
We can go down this way. It's 100% right, no. But how many Bahamians have I trained in the art of scuba diving who then, through scuba diving or other activities, instead of being fishers, have said, well, now I'm working on a yacht as an instructor and I can pay my way to university. And I'm actually going for my bachelor, true story. Or now I own my own dive shop. Oh, I actually have become a professor in school. I come from a fisher family, but I'm no longer a fisher. And I actually have this different job with these different qualifications. All thanks to, in the beginning, the scuba diving industry, the shark diving industry, which is very, very flourishing here, that gives a platform. The Bahamas have recognized that. They made the Bahamas a shark sanctuary. They recognize the value that live sharks have. Like I said, there are places where it's done. I've seen horror stories. I'm like, thank goodness the sharks are so forgiving of us and our mess up methods, because there's some butchers out there that do really terrible things in terms of a shark dive. But it's like saying there's bad dog owners, so people should not own dogs. There's bad shark operators, I give you that. But there's also very good shark operators. And I think the benefits from education, exposure, familiarity, understanding, economics are more advantageous than the negative sides.
That's fantastic. How have you seen the attitudes change towards sharks and the conservation change over the course of your career?
They went from obviously very scared to more fascinated and curious. There's still sometimes an underline of fear, but more fascination, more curiosity. Sometimes it's gone the other way, a little bit cavalier. I've seen things done with sharks, interactions, and it's just like you need to tone it down a little bit. You're still dealing with a 4-meter animal, a 20-foot tiger shark. That is my feeling. Sometimes they're so forgiving that we've gone the other extreme. The excuse me, the general public, when you come out of our little shark bubble, the opinion is still very negative, very full of myths and misconceptions. I usually go sometimes post a video of something, and the comments underneath is just fueled with ignorance in a Latin word, which means lack of knowledge, ignorare. But ignorance and fear and misconceptions, and I think we still have quite a long road. I still get negative comments sometimes underneath mine. Oh, the sharks is on the ocean floor. It's going to suffocate to death. And it's going to after you're done the 3 seconds time on posting your comments, scroll the other 5 seconds through my profile to see how I explain about buccal popping 600 times in a month. So it's an interesting public perception.
Gotcha. So what impact do you hope to make on conservation of sharks and the ecosystem through the world?
Well, I've done the impact in the Bahamas because I was one of the key role people to create a shark sanctuary here in the Bahamas. And as such, I've been invited as a spokesperson in many places of the world. One of my firm beliefs is that the communication needs to come from the people of the place to the people. So I've been invited in places like Singapore, Myanmar, China, Malaysia, I do apologize, China, to speak together with local people about shark conservation. And I hope to continue to be the spokesperson. I'm talking right now with Japan. I do school presentations in different parts of the world. I have people that use my Instagram reels or blurbs to actually do school education from Australia all the way to Russia, actually. And I think that is the impact. These people use, I have a couple of Russian people that translate everything. Everything I post, they translate it in Russian. And so I think that is my purpose is I toss the stone and I reach the first ring. But that ring keeps expanding and it reaches other people. And so I hope they pick up my teaching, my information, and then transform it into languages that I can speak and share it in the different world. And I think that is the impact that I'm having, that I see having. More directly, I am becoming now involved as a Italian that has been living 30 years in the Bahamas. I just connected with the Fin Trade campaign in Europe. And so I'm going to become a little bit more active into that legislations and changes in that area. It's a big deal to deal with. The fishing industry is super strong, but that's going to be, if you're asking me what's my next project that is more focused, is that. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep doing what I do, and people just pick it up and transfer. Every day I receive messages. I just had a message from somebody in Uruguay who is doing an English class where the teacher's using my writings as their English exercises.
Wow.
And he had questions about sharks. I'm like, okay.
That is amazing. So here's a good question for you, though, is how can ordinary people like us that I live in a landlocked state, how can we help protect sharks and their habitats?
Oh my goodness. Do you have another hour of podcast? So we can help in many ways. We can help by understanding the relationship that even a landlocked area has towards the ocean, because everything in the end is the interconnectivity of water flows through all our aspects of our lives, right? Understanding that flow allows us to understand the interconnectivity. Very basic stuff, small changes. Do not try to do drastic changes. Drastic changes, New Year's resolutions don't work. So maybe let's start with changing the way, still eating seafood. How do we eat seafood? Which seafood are we eating? There's a seawatch.org from the Monterey Bay Aquarium website that has green list, yellow list, red list of fish. So that is one change. The other one is, for example, reduce some of our carbon footprint. And let's say real carbon footprint. So maybe less single-use plastic. When I travel, I try to stop in restaurants for example, in airports that serve with proper cutlery. I never buy anything that is in plastic boxes or plastic forks and that kind of stuff. So I'll stop for a coffee where they have mugs and things like that. It's a small thing, but little things like that. I always travel with my water bottle, with my coffee cup. When we go shopping, we can bring our own bags. We can inspire by saying, from now on, I will not use this one product. Right? Just one little change at a time. There's a lot of products that have squalene, for example. Squalene is a derivative from sharks. It has zero properties. Never mind the shark meat has a lot of mercury in it anyway. Let's go through that and say, well, what's the alternative? And then the biggest one, I think the biggest one is exercise your right to speak, which turns into exercise your right to vote. And I'm not going political here, but let's look, what is the legislation for shark commerce, shark fin trade? What's what we're doing in Europe? Shark fishing in my state. What is my right to maybe promote a different kind of legislation? What can I ask my governor? What can I ask my jurisdiction? And speak that voice up, educated and gently. Screaming and yelling doesn't work, and ignorant facts don't work either. So educate yourself and say, we need to change this to make it more sustainable, and exercise our right. And I think that is the most powerful thing that people can do, is how can I change? Well, change from your own backyard. And stop using poisons in the backyard as well, because they go on a water table anyway.
Absolutely.
Done preaching.
No, you're not preaching at all, and I agree completely. You certainly more sustainable methods, less pesticides. There's a lot of alternatives.
I actually wrote a blog called "How to Save Sharks from Your Garden."
Really? I will look that up and make sure that I read that thoroughly and push that out to our audience as well.
I'll give you a link. I think I wrote it and posted it in a couple of places, but it's literally how to save the sharks or the oceans from your garden.
I love it. I absolutely love it. So what advice would you give somebody who wants to follow you into exploration diving like you've done?
Well, the way I did it is, like I said, you need obviously to acquire titles and credentials. You also need to acquire experience. The best way is to, as you grow vertically, is also expand laterally. Take your time, right? Don't burn the bridges. You need experience to get to the next one. You can't build a strong skyscraper if you don't have a solid foundations. And so that is a concept that we go through. Understand that showing up is not enough. I showed up doesn't. It's good when you get a medal because you showed up for a fun race, but showing up is not enough. You need to put in the time. You need to put in the effort, and there is a price to pay. And that price is for you to decide. I can't decide it for you. So you need to decide: is this worth for me, or is this not? And so I use the rule 80-20. If every morning I wake up with the 80% of like, I can't wait to go to my day of work, which is diving with guests, dealing with emails, doing all these things, then if 80% of the time I have that feeling, I'm still in the right place. There's that 20%. You have to have that 20%. Those are some maybe or the philosophical. The practical is you need to build your experience. There are a lot of scholarships and training grants that you can also use that I didn't have access to. You have to move somewhere. If you want to work, I have people say, well, are you leaving Utah and I want to work with sharks? And it's just like, find sharks first. Find a way to be around the sharks, if that's what you want to do. Experience. take those 2-3 weeks to come and visit me, as take those 2-3 weeks to go and do a camp with someone else and see if that's what you want to do. Had people coming here, it's like, oh, I definitely want to work with sharks. And when you open the bucket, they go, what is that? And I'm like, that is a treat for the sharks. This guy stinks. It's kind of like, yeah, I guess your career with sharks is over. So there's it's like there's all these different things. I had someone that came and within 15 minutes, I always want to dive with you. Within 15 minutes of the dive, she was like, well, this is so cold. I'm so cold. I'm just going to go up. And didn't dive for the rest of her stay. And it's just like, there's nothing wrong, but obviously it is not for you. And it's okay. But you need to out there and sometimes try it out a little bit. This will be some of my advices.
Awesome.
But start. Launch yourself. Give it a try. If it doesn't work, go back to the drawing board and revisit from a different point of view.
Showing up is not enough. I love that, by the way.
Showing up is not enough. It's good, but I know.
No, I agree completely, and I love it. So, Cristina, if you could go back in time, what would you do differently in your dive career at this point, if anything?
I think I would have followed more, maybe my own advice. Sometimes I think I waited too long for things to be lined up in order for me to do the next launch. And maybe I will launch a little bit sooner. But in hindsight, in Italian we have an expression, it is the time that defines. So all my decisions and the evolutions that brought me here, which is right now maybe one of the best positions I ever been in my entire career, the happiest, the most challenged, the most fun, the most amazing and exciting looking forward to. It was through also maybe waiting a little bit too long or sometimes hesitating a little bit. So yeah, would I change maybe some of those hesitations? Absolutely. But have those hesitations been maybe contributing to where I am now? Probably. Hindsight is always 2020, but
no, absolutely, I agree completely.
If one thing I would change has nothing to do with diving is, but that was formative as well. I developed eating behavioral problems as a teenager, and the oceans and diving helped me heal from them. And inside, I think, wow, I wish I would have healed much faster, so I would have enjoyed this more balanced life with food and fun and friends a little bit sooner. But again, struggles of the mind and the body also are formative, and take them away, maybe I would have not been the person that I am.
Absolutely. We are who we are by the sum of what we've experienced. Absolutely. I get it completely. Cristina, what are you currently working on, and how can we be involved, and how can I help?
Oh, that's a tough question to answer, because everybody says, oh, what's your next project? And it's like, well, we live our projects. We live in our project. Like I said the other day, the guest canceled because he was in Finland. And so we redirected, and we doing these like underwater vision pictures. And so we said, oh, well, let's use the day to go and do the underwater vision pictures. We are always educating about sharks and working with them. I do quite a lot of outreach programs. People can help through the nonprofit if they feel that some of the work, they can see the work we're doing through the nonprofit first. And I feel that is something that is worth of their financial support is always welcome. Our method is we work with funds, and then we use the funds to actually host the people and support people and teach for free and do all this extra exploration work, data collection for the Bahama National Trust, all our own time, our own money, our own gear. So any contribution like that helps. People can come and visit, experience what we do. Any person that comes contributes to us being here and being able to continue our work off to the sites. We have, it's very interesting, we have no boundaries. Our work is our life is our work, our passion is our work, which is our life. On our free time, we're still exploring caves, but then we take the guests to see the caves that we explored. And so it's like this constantly boiling minestrone, if I can say, use an Italian expression. It just sits on the pot and it still boils. And we constantly move from one to the other. And this reason why we're still here is because if my guests were to call this morning and says, I don't feel like diving, I'll go and pick up a different gear bag and say, okay, let's redirect our focus. We have the little project that we needed to do. The other day, my rebreather failed. One of my sensors failed right at the entrance of the cave while we were preparing. So I took the rebreather off. I stayed in open circuit, and we actually went and did some photogrammetry within the first 100 feet of the cave in open circuit for me, and used the dive like that. So instead of doing this kind of dive, we went and did, let's do this photogrammetry. We always want to do this photogrammetry, and all of a sudden it's like, well, let's do it today. Might as well do it today. And that's what I love about being here.
It's amazing. Well, finally, last question. Give us some advice on how to be successful in life and diving.
My mom called it stubborn. I call it dedication. I think my secret, I don't think I have a secret. I really love what I do. I found what makes me happy. And I think that is the secret in life. Find what makes you happy. 80-20. Once you find what makes you happy, then you're more willing to put in the time and put in the effort and put in the sacrifice. I think that's my secret. Find what makes you happy.
Find what makes you happy. Pretty simple
and
advice.
Ask your question, does this make me happy? Oh, I'm going to go for my PhD. And I have nothing against PhDs, right? It's make me miserable every step of the way. I'm just going to give up the PhD and stick with my master's, because when I did my master, I actually found that I really like to do that. Find what makes you happy. Live for yourself, not for other people's dreams, expectations, and do not listen to their fears, because they are ready to project all their fears onto you.
That is for sure.
Bucket full.
Cristina, thank you for your time. I've taken more of your time than I anticipated, but it was a fascinating conversation, and I loved every minute of it. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it. We talked to the mother of sharks about her experiences in life, diving, exploration. We hit the wide gambit, training, everything, and success in life. She is amazing. Please, please, please go to her website, CristinaZenato.com. Make sure to visit her at People of the Water, her nonprofit. The best way we can get involved: give with your wallet, give with your heart, give with your time, and don't just show up. Work it, put the effort in. So thank you so much.